Little Prisoners is another book by Casey Watson that I have reread, and I remember really liking it the first time, but I couldn't really remember the specifics. Reading it the second time, it was just as compelling and just as fascinating, and at certain points, just as frustrating, because when you read about the state that these two children were in, it really is shocking that they were, left with their parents for so long. And I don't want to talk about too much about the background of the children because that's part of the fascination of learning more and more about kind of their home life as the children reveal more. But these two young children arrive on Casey's doorstep with their social worker, Ashton, who is 9 at the beginning of the book, and Olivia, who is 6, and they are filthy. There's a wonderfully written description of them, very vividly written, about how their hair is literally buzzing with head lice and they're filthy. And there's this description of Ashton's feet and just how filthy they were, and it was so vivid it kind of made me want to vomit. Really well written descriptions, and as they spend time with her, they realize that it's not just physical neglect, but also abuse, sexual abuse that these very young children have faced potentially since they were born, basically. And I don't want to say too much more about that because obviously the disclosures are what make it kind of fascinating and keep you hooked reading. It certainly kept me hooked as things just seem to go from one extreme to another. And I will say the outcome is quite unpredictable for the most part. It wasn't 100% obvious what their fate would be or where they'd end up. Whereas with some foster care memoirs, you can kind of work out quite quickly what the outcome will be. But this one I didn't think was too obvious. And it's generally it's an easy read for the right reasons. It's well written, it's engaging, it's gripping, it's compelling, it's shocking, and also disturbing. But there is one chapter that, to use a popular phrase, boiled my blood. I'm not going to say exactly why, but and you'll know which one I mean when I say it. It's the chapter with I think it was the headmaster and the teaching assistant from the children's original school. I believe it was the headmaster and the TA. And just what they were saying just wound me up so much that chapter was difficult to read. It's the kind of chapter that, occasionally you'll read a book and throw the book at the wall. I was reading it on Kindle, so thankfully I didn't lob my phone. But it was so infuriating that it really, really irked me. But the rest of it was an absolute joy to read, for the right reasons, because it's great to see these children finally getting the care and the help they deserve. It was also a little bit frustrating, though, with certain people within social services who are basically just saying, Casey, you're doing a really good job. You and your husband are doing great. Just keep at it. When Casey just kept asking for help for the children rather than help for her. And I think even nowadays there's not enough help in place. I think it's utterly ridiculous that CALMS, the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, will not see a child if they're planning a move soon. I can understand their logic, but if a child is this badly affected, then surely there's no time to waste. So there are certain things that certain authorities just do that absolutely wind me up, and this is made very clear in this book. But ultimately, it's a joy to read for the right reasons. It's shocking for the wrong reasons. Maybe one of my favourite foster care memoirs. Very well written. A couple of typing errors in the Kindle version, which irritated me a bit, but not so much that it hindered my enjoyment. If you've never read any of Casey Watson's books, this is as good a place to start as any. As I said, I am rereading them chronologically, so it's a different experience this time, and I'm enjoying it. Still got quite a few to go to reread, but Little Prisoners is definitely a really fantastic book and definitely worth reading.